Please let me know screen is available and visible. Voice is clear.
Yep, we can see the screen and everything.
Okay. So good morning, all of you. Welcome to this webinar, which is Azure integrating on-premises with Azure AD, on-premises AD with Azure AD. Let me start with my quick introduction. Myself, Kumar. I have 15 years experience into IT and IT infrastructure. I'll not take much time for this introduction now and jump into that course content as such. So in this part, we talk about three important things. One is overview of Azure AD and what is a premium AD, why we need to convert on-premise or Azure AD as a premium AD, what are the features on that, and how we integrate on-premises AD with Azure AD, and what are those authentication scenarios. And the main output is why we need to privilege Azure AD in cloud and going forward that then and how it integrates with the on-premises part. So first, very important question comes here. Why we need Azure AD? From last 20 years, we are managed with on-premises AD. So the main reason is that if we have any cloud application in Azure or in cloud, we need Azure AD. The main benefit of Azure AD is to authenticate cloud application in Azure. So let's talk about overview of Azure AD first. So Azure AD is an instance-based AD. So instance-based AD means it's like a SaaS database. We don't have that equivalent functionality what you are getting in on-prem. If you know on-prem part, on-prem, you if you say you have entities.dat, you have sysvol as a policies, you have domain, you have child domain, you have replication, you have OU, you have lots of computer objects. So these kind of structures, what you have in on-prem, so those things are not there in the on-prem, in the Azure AD. So that's a big difference between on-premises AD and Azure AD. So it's just an instance-based AD, and that instance-based AD, practically when we create a Azure AD, you don't have that database access at backend level. That's the meaning of instance-based AD. So even its slide is mentioning there's a no GPU. So typically you have only users, you have only groups, and you have some basic functionality. And the result is this Azure AD is to authenticate, is to do authentication, authorization, access in cloud application. So you don't need groups, or you don't need group policies. You don't need other objects what you have in on-premises. So that's a big difference between on-premises AD and Azure AD. So that's first thing. And second thing is, when you create Azure AD, typically it gives you a standard AD, and Microsoft recommends we should convert our standard AD into a premium AD. There are some list of benefits what we have, and that's the reason we need to convert standard AD into a premium AD. So first benefit is self-service password reset. Or self-service password reset is, in on-premises we have some credentials, and now you are integrating on-premises with Azure AD, which I'm going to talk about in 10 minutes. So say example, if any cloud user reset their own password, or they want to reset their own password in cloud, we can do that with the feature called self-service password reset, this option. Self-service group means we can manage self-service group. We can create my own groups in Azure AD if I have given a rights to do that. Conditional access is a new features in Azure AD. Conditional access means, take example, I want to access cloud application from a corporate public IP, only corporate public IP. So how I can restrict them so that I cannot access from other IP. So that's a part of your corporate conditional access policy. Those policies we can do that. Advanced security reports like how many users are enabling right now, how many users are disabled, how many users we assign license. Those AD related advanced reports are available in Azure AD Premium. MFA, two-way authentications. So one time when I access with my corporate credential, and second time when I try to access, I need a token from SMS. So MFA is enabled. So SLA is the biggest reason we need to convert Azure AD into a premium. And self-service, I already explained. Azure AD Connect Health. We'll talk about what is Azure AD Connect very deeply. So and and Azure AD Connect Health is to identify the status of health service between on-premises sync and Azure. So if in case any issue with the sync service, immediately we get alert with the new feature called Azure AD Connect. And identity management and protection means this is a new security features under the security bucket of Azure, which is a part of your premium P2 license. And that protection means if any unidentified activity found in Azure AD in terms of login from a client side, we immediately get an alert message. So they have some basic AI algorithm at the back end which detect that your activity. Say example, generally you logged in from a US public IP, and suddenly you travel to 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 different continent, and then you try to access. So he got the activity like you are trying to log in from a different public IP, which you are not usually logged in. So they got some algorithm to find out that like protection, like a fraud activity kind of thing this way. So this get a extra alert on top of that. So that's called identity protection and privilege identity management. So these are the very important features which help us, which gives us the information like we have to convert AD into premium, and Microsoft recommends we have to convert standard AD into the premium. So MFA is typically available for premium license for P2, as I said, and you can enable for Azure subscriptions. If you have any subscription comes directly with enterprise mobility and security EMS subscription, there also you can enable it. And if you have any Azure subscription or tenant or Azure AD, which is a part of your Office 365, there also you can enable multi-factor authentication. And you can integrate MFA only in cloud, and you can integrate on-prem server as well. So you have both privilege available uh, to use the deployment option either in cloud or on premises. So when you go to the MFA settings, you will get some additional options like, as I said, fraud alert message. Second option is one-time bypass. One-time bypass is suppose you are traveling some different continent, your mobile is not working. So before you traveling, or after traveling as well, when your mobile is not working and you are not getting the SMS code, so in that case, you send an email to your admin. They can allow you to use your application without using MFA. That's called one-time bypass. They can allow for one day specific reason. Custom voice messages. Whenever you try to log in on to the portal, and after portal, you can accept custom voice messages like a welcome messages. Trusted IP. MFA can understand only the trusted IP from a corporate network, and only it allow if you try to access only from those public IP as the internet. App password, you can define a specific password for each application, like a second password while accessing. Then if you forget that password, then definitely user need to contact by some other methods. So those methods are uh, like email, SMS, or hash code through a app service. So for that, they require some kind of additional information while resetting their password. So those information is required app. And finally, trusted device. We have in IT, we have a concept called BYOD, bring your own device at company premises. So so there is a option where you can you can you can trust that device which you are using so frequently In those cases, they can remember your password as well as a trusted device. Now come to very important part, the scenario part, how on-premises AD and Azure AD work together. So let me open one scenario first. So first is Azure AD hybrid scenario. So typically, you have on-premises environment up and running, and this is your Azure AD. So end of the day, it's our responsibility to integrate on-premises with Azure AD first. So we need a utility called Azure AD Connect. Old days, we use a utility called directory synchronization. The big difference between directory synchronization and Azure AD Connect is Azure AD Connect comes with a password write back. First, I'll tell you what is Azure AD Connect. Azure AD Connect is a utility which sync all my on-premises users from on-premises user to Azure AD. This is the first initial way which we need to integrate on-premises AD to Azure AD. This is a sync service which run every 30 minutes, and there is a object account name is AAD underscore with a numeric number, unknown number. This is a user account which created in Azure AD, which is the honor of this sync service, which help us to start the sync service every 30 minutes, and it do a delta sync. First time it will be a full sync, and after that it will be a delta sync. Now, once you do the Azure AD Connect sync service, they ask you couple of integration options. One is a password hash sync, and one of the option is called with ADFS. So we'll talk about that authentication scenarios as well in 5 minutes. This is first thing. Second thing is there's a concept called Azure VM as a domain controller. So this is another way Microsoft recommends. I'll take your questions separately, So I saw there is a question, I think. So there's a separate Microsoft concept is Azure VM as a domain controller. So why we need Azure VM as a domain controller? So this is very straightforward example. Azure VM as a AD server. Let me open the scenario. You have on-premises environment running, say USA. You have one data center region running in Europe, and you have a site-to-site connectivity. So why you need a domain controller in each location? At least two as a best practice, because you need a fast authentication. Same way, when we built another data center in Azure, say somewhere this is in, say, Australia, then you have a site-to-site connectivity between head office to Azure, and you have a couple of 100+ servers in Azure VM. So who will authenticate these Azure VMs? So if you don't have any local server here, then definitely this request goes to the head office, and it takes some time because we have a site-to-site connectivity. So every Azure VM is a part of a domain called abccorp.com. So definitely what we need as a typical scenario, what we are doing from last 20 years, we need a local AD server to authenticate locally. I hope it makes sense. So normally people get confused, this Azure VM as a AD and Azure Active Directory both are same. No, both are not same. This Azure VM as a AD is typically a on-prem AD. It's just a replica of an on-prem AD. This particular AD is not doing any authentication of a cloud server or cloud applications. So that Azure AD concept will be different. Make sense? So that's different thing. Now, so we know why we need Azure VM as a AD. So that it's just like a AD replica. So, and if we need a fast authentication in Azure VM, if you have huge number of servers as a design practice, 100+, we need one Azure VM as a domain controller as a best practice. That's called the planning part. So how we can do that Azure VM as a domain controller? So so that steps are mentioned in that slide, but I'll explain in the architecture way. So typically we need site-to-site VPN connectivity, which is mentioned in the diagram. First thing. Second thing, when you create Azure VM, typically Azure VM is having own DNS, or you can say Azure DNS. So we need to change all my Azure VM pointing towards my on-prem DNS. That's a very basic step. Um, like like to join any machine with a domain, we need two things. One is connectivity, and second, the servers should talk to the right DNS. So the first step is connectivity and the custom DNS. So after that, I can join the machine. So create a one network, create a one storage, create one VM, general step. And finally, we need to make sure that configure DNS to point to the on-prem, this thing. So so that's way I can join my any Azure VM as part of my on-prem DNS. So directory synchronization, as I said, directory synchronization is a tool which sync on-premises user to Azure AD, and it's a full sync first time, and later stage it will be a delta sync. Every 30 minutes it will run. And if you enable P2 license to Azure AD, it give you option self password reset, which I explain, like P2 benefits, premium benefits. So just imagine on-prem password is different, and when it's synced to the Azure, it will be the same password. And in cloud, if you change the password with the option called self password reset, so definitely you want that password should come back to the on-prem. That's called password write back. So typically, this Azure AD Connect sync service will run one way. It create an object, whatever the objects you are changing in on-prem, it will go to Azure AD one-way sync, but only one change will come back from Azure AD to on-prem. That's called password write back, in case if you enable that self password reset. So when you do Azure AD Connect, typically you have two important scenarios. One is password hash sync, and second is with ADFS. I'll write down these two scenarios: password hash sync and with ADFS. The difference is in password hash sync, let me open the diagram. On-prem user will sync to the Azure AD with the same password in a hash format. In that case, when I try to access that application, say I'm here in my laptop. First time it connect to the on-prem AD in the morning when I connect with my laptop. And when I try to access a cloud application, let's open the scenario here. This one. So this scenario, say example, early morning, I logged in with a laptop and it authenticate with the on-prem AD. After that, I open a cloud application like Office 365. It goes to Office 365 directory. Office 365 directory is saying, boss, let's go to the Azure AD. And he knows my password. But you have to authenticate second time. So in this case, if this is without ADFS, let's assume there's no ADFS right now. That's our first scenario. In that scenario, he knows your password because the password hash sync knows your password in the hash format. It replicate that password. It validate your hash value. Once the value is validated, it allow you to access the application. So in that case, you have two-way authentications. First time, it will be for on-prem, second authentication for the cloud. Every time you have to type two same passwords. Even you save the password in application end, every time you have to click OK. That's why we called as almost single sign-on. This is not a real single sign-on. Real single sign-on, if you need, we have a concept called with ADFS. So in ADFS, we want when request goes to the cloud application, it come back to the cloud directory. He will not do the authentication job. So if he's not doing, who will do this? That's called the federated identity. We send this request to the ADFS proxy, and ADFS proxy goes to ADFS. And ADFS is fully integrated with my on-prem AD. And end of the day, on-prem AD is authenticating. And that's a very typical concept. When any person is authenticated 5 minutes before, and same person is authenticating for the cloud application, it will not ask you the credential. You duplicate the credential ticket and allow me to access the application. That's called the claim-based authentication. So summary is, in password hash sync, Azure AD will authenticate cloud application. Even the password is same. That's why we call it as single sign-on. And every time you have to say OK to authenticate, although your password is saved in the console. In ADFS, all cloud application is to authenticated by on-premises AD, and that's why on-prem AD, and that's why we called as single sign-on, because first time it authenticates with on-prem AD, and second time when you try to access cloud application, it redirect to the on-prem ADFS. Make sense? And this way the single sign-on will work. I'll pause for a minute for your questions in case if anyone have in this, typically Azure AD Connect and this authentication scenario.
So guys, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box or you can put them in the Q&A section.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'll connect to the portal and I'll create one Azure AD first and give it premium license. And second, meanwhile, I'll try to sync on-premises users to Azure AD as a hybrid. So create a resource. Identity, Azure AD. I'll give a name. This is a display name. Say quick. So name is, say, corp9.onmicrosoft.com if it is available. End of the day, we have to add a custom domain. So corp99.onmicrosoft.com. corp9909. So this is, let's take one example. I have on-premises custom domain is corp.com, and my Azure AD is, by default, it become on Microsoft.com. So definitely you need to add a custom domain, like a production domain, to add corp.com. That's one additional step is mandatory. I'll show you how to do that. So once this is done, I'll switch the default directory to this directory. So this is done. I'll refresh the portal and my switch directory from my default. I'll try from this console now, Azure AD, and their default directory. I'll try to switch from this option here. Switch directory and search with the name called quick start Jan. So first of all, under this Azure AD, this is I'm into standard AD first. So let me convert into the premium AD. So there's an option called company branding. There's an option get free trial right now for premium AD, and I'm taking a free trial for a premium P2. This is 100 license for 30 days is allowed by default with the premium P2. And this premium P2 I'll try to assign to a user. And before this, first users. So typically, as I said, all my on-premises user come to the Azure. But we need one user mandatory here that will be a global admin so that he manage my Azure Active Directory. So my name is, say, global admin @ on Microsoft.com. This will be my full credential for my global admin. Profile will be basic things, but we need to assign a directory role global admin. This is the only one user we need. Rest all user will come from on-prem, and this will be my password. And first time when you try, it asks me to reset this password. That's called global admin. I click on this global admin. I have to assign usage location, which is mandatory. You are part of which country? Usage location, because when we try to assign a P2 license, it asks you to assign the license. It asks you to assign this usage location. So that's called the first part. Second part is when I go to licenses. So I have one product available now, and I try to assign this P2 to my users. So it's a user level license. Whatever the number of users you have to assign those to a users. So I have only one user right now, which is a global admin. And I'm trying to assign that premium P2 to that global admin. So now this user have P2 functionalities, self password reset and all those things what we discussed, and so that's why you see now after this refresh, global admin license is assigned. After this refresh, you get to know like one assign. It's just like a refresh. That's first thing. And now second thing, let's prepare something for the on-prem environment. So I have a couple of my on-prem VMs available. So I'll reset this. I'll connect this VM on-prem AD. This is my on-prem VM. So for understanding better purpose, I'll reset this VM with a new VM, like a fresh VM. So you will get, what is called like a fresh VM as a reset. And then I'll create my on-prem environment upfront so that you'll get a better clarity. So in this case, I'll make one on-prem, name is corp.com, and try to add a couple of users. And those users I'll try to sync from my on-premises to Azure. So this is my fresh VM. I'll give my on-prem credential. Same IP and same DNS like on-prem. And make my first domain controller for my company. So while creating this, let me talk about that basic steps, what we need to configure Azure AD Connect. We need two credentials, on-premises, this machine credential we need, plus Azure AD global admin. So we need to reset the global admin default password. Then only global admin really works in reality. Otherwise, default password is not accepting, because default is default. So while configuring this on-prem machine, I'll try to reset the global admin password, like a first time password. So this is my fresh VM for on-prem AD. This will be my corporate NIC, and I'll add another NIC called internet. Promote this server to a domain controller. New Forest. Copsoft.com. And with the default setting, we have to build that on-prem environment. It will reboot. Meanwhile, at a backend, I'll try to reset the global admin password. sysvol ntds, and it will check basic prerequisite like DNS is ready, password is secure, and then finally it give you a message. Yes, this domain controller is ready to install as a prerequisite. So meanwhile, I'll try to reset the password now. So for that, I'm opening a Google. This is the URL for client side to access myapps.microsoft.com. myapps.microsoft.com. This is a URL which is we use to access the client side application, and we'll try to use with a global account. And first time it asks you to reset the password. We need this password while configuring Azure AD Connect. So this is my client side application portal. If any application I assigned, it's available under myapps.microsoft.com. So meanwhile, I'll move back to my domain controller. So typically best practice is you should not install Azure AD Connect on a same machine. So what is the best practice for Azure AD Connect? So Azure AD Connect, typically you need a separate SQL server. So I'll talk about that design practice as well right now. So if you have 5,000 users in on-prem which you want to sync to the Azure AD, minimum 5,000 and above, Microsoft best practices, you should have a SQL server on a separate machine. So you need typically two more machines. One is a Azure AD Connect sync service machine, and second is a SQL server. And whenever you try to connect to install that sync service, it asks you to connect to the database server, and you need to mention the database name and the IP. That always be a best practice. Reason behind is, in case if any trouble comes to the Azure AD sync service or service crash, at least your database is on a separate machine. You build a new service immediately. It takes 5 minutes, but connected to the same database, it rebuilt your server immediately. That always be a best practice. And if you're not follow, if you say, okay, I don't want to spend that SQL cost, and for the cost perspective, in that case, Microsoft recommends you use a inbuilt database. So when you install that Azure AD Connect sync service without defining the SQL database, it creates their own database, inbuilt database for 4 GB size Express database, and that Express database uh, supports up to maximum 20,000 objects. So it means if you are using 20,000, if you're planning to sync more than 20,000 objects from on-premises AD to Azure AD, then SQL database is mandatory. And overall, as a best practice for a high resiliency and high availability point of view, we recommend we should have a SQL server on a separate machine. So this is my domain controller up and running. And first time it asked me to change the password. This is my on-prem. I'll try to create 2 users now under corpsoft.com, new OU, employees, on-premises, user 1. This is my employee. Another one. I'll shut down this machine. Reason is I'm into the Hyper-V environment. I need internet to sync, and we cannot add a switch on a running machine in Hyper-V. That's a Hyper-V drawback. So I'm making a shutdown and try to connect a new switch to get the internet. So now I have internet. How to verify internet quickly? There's a ping.4.2.2. If I'm pinging, so it means internet is there. So I have 2 NICs. One is a local NIC, one is a external NIC for internet. And I'm making, if you have 2 NICs, you have to define the binding orders. Corporate always be a top priority, external will be a second priority. So I'm going to install this Azure AD Connect on a same machine. I'll disable this IE security. And now it will be easy to work on this IE console under the server and download Azure AD Connect. From official. and try to install this on the same machine for a lab purpose. But on reality, I told you we need a separate SQL Server and separate VM. So when you try to install, what Microsoft recommend, you should not do the express install. So you typically, when you do I agree the agreement, I accept the agreement, continue, we should not do the express install, never. So in reality, always go to the custom and customize and give a SQL Server. Use an existing SQL Server, server name and database. That's mandatory. Right now I'm doing install because Express Edition, SQL Express database, local database. And finally, it asks you password has sync or ADFS. Right now I'm doing with password has sync, global admin, credential we already changed. So
So Victor, we have a question. What is the reason to not use Express install?
yeah, so Express install will give you two negative. It will not allow to sync more than 20,000 users and above, one negative. And second negative is if any service get crashed, this database is within the same machine. So what is the best practice? If database is in a different machine, then if at least the sync service is crashed, at least my database is on a different machine, I can rebuild immediately. For a high availability prospect, SQL is mandatory. That's the two reason. And now on-prem credential. On-prem credential is my this one, CorpSoft. And finally, it asks you what object do you want to sync. So I have not added a custom domain right now, so which is okay. It give me a verification you're doing without custom domain. I told you what is the meaning of custom domain. So so the only difference is, you see, I'm not selecting everything. What is the best practice? You don't need extra things in Azure AD. It's an instance based AD. So we need only employees as an object. And finally, password write back as an optional option. And password write back, I told you what is password write back. If I reset my password in cloud, that password should come back to the on-prem. And within 5 minutes, we'll see the result. So although this topic is slightly big, and almost we are on almost closing to the time. So I request to allow another 2-3 minutes more, before we wind up this session, to see the real result, in another 2-3 minutes. So
Yeah,
meanwhile, I'll take up a questions here. So so as I see, there is a question called why we need express, why we should not do express install. Because express install, it not allow you to select the SQL server name, database name, which I told you. And without SQL in an enterprise environment, that's not the best practice. Typically in a company, I assume we have more than 20,000 employees, and more than 20,000 employees, syncing will not support by this local database with having 4 GB database size. So that's a best practice. We need a SQL. And if you need a SQL, you have to do custom, because in custom only, you will get an option to connect to the database. Make sense?
So guys, if you have any questions, do type them in the Q&A section. We also have this IT community called expertconnect.quickstart.com. Go over there, join it. A lot of the instructors, people who present webinar, everyone's over there. You can ask questions, get answers over there as well.
Just 1 second.
Yep, time to connect the battery.
Yeah.
So guys, it looks like we are running into all kinds of technical problems today, and I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you guys joining us. If you like, I want to be respectful of your time. I know this was scheduled from 3 to 4, so the time is up. If any of you want to drop off, please feel free to do so. We will send out the recording of the webinar to you as well. Like I'll send out a link to a YouTube video of this webinar to everyone who signed up for it. Meanwhile, we'll wait for Victor to join again. Maybe it will take him a couple of minutes. He'll join again and show us the final product, but we're pretty much through with the demo. So I'll continue recording, but the recorded video will be sent to you guys. All right, Victor. So I think you're in. Just let's just skip to the last part of the demo. So Victor, you are on mute.
Minutes time. We will get the users. Are you able to hear my voice? Yeah. So
Yeah, we can hear you.
so you see that on-premises directory synchronization is started from my server win KOPV, and when I go to my on-prem server and type my host name, this is win KOPV. So and even first sync user is started, and another initially takes some time, and finally whatever the two users is there will available here. And initially, first user will come, which is a computer account as a sync service. So this way we integrate on-premises AD with Azure AD. And after that, once it's done, again you have to assign P2 license as normal as a best practice. So summary for this webinar is three things. What is Azure AD? What is the difference between on-prem AD as Azure AD? Why we need P2 license as a best practice? And what are two important authentication scenarios when we integrate on-prem AD to Azure AD? One is password hash sync. It we called as almost single sign-on. And second thing, ADFS. ADFS is real single sign-on, which never asks a password second time when you access cloud application. So, so these are the core important summary. And while doing Azure AD Connect, what is the best practices? And that best practices is we should use separate SQL servers, separate VM, and it will be use a Delta sync. And this sync service starts every 30 minutes from the synchronization started. I hope this session is informative for you. And last, apologize from my side to that link was not working initially for 5 minutes. And if you have any question, I'm ready to answer at this point of time.
So guys, there were a lot of technical hiccups in this. We apologize for it, and we thank you all for sticking with us to the end. If you have any question, do reach out to us. So we have a question. Can you show us how to edit the Azure AD Connect to sync different OU?
Can you
So
show us how to edit the Azure AD Connect to sync different OU? Yes. So, so this sync is happening actually. Let's try to edit that configuration. So when you double click this Azure AD Connect, cannot process because it's okay. We start that service because that reboot happened, you know. So Azure AD Connect. Microsoft Azure AD Connect. I'll restart this machine. Because I had to restart that service because you know that power issue. So, but that configuration is, meanwhile, I'll just give you an idea. So when you open that console, there's an option called edit the configuration. So what is best practice? In edit the configuration, in the configuration wizard, you will get select another OU. But in a real best practice, if you understand that on-prem part, right? In on-prem, we have a proper OU structure. If you say in reality, your parent OU, sub OU, and whatever the other sub OUs, end of the day, your entire user structure, user accounts comes into the parent OU. So best practice is you always select that parent OU. That always be a best choice. In case you have multiple OUs where you contain multiple users accounts, then you can select initially and later state also. You double click that Azure AD Connect icon and edit the configuration. And during this edit, it asks you to select multiple OUs. But when you do the edit the configuration, again, it takes 30 minutes to restart that syncing. Make sense?
so So guys, if you have any questions, do reach out to us at expertconnect.quickstart.com. It's an IT community for questions and answers. You can also email me at marketing@quickstart.com. And thank you for joining us. Sorry for all the technical glitches today, and see you guys next time. Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.